So onto the perspective drawing, and this is where it um, all gets a bit heavy. Like I think Perry, you said that those of you that did the level 4 had done perspective drawing before.
We have.
Yeah. Okay, so you've done single point and 2 point.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So this might be a little bit repetitive. I know that a couple of you were talking about 3 point perspective. For me, I'd prefer not to go down that line until we're actually back at Te Auaha. That would be the ideal spot to do it because your perspective is so high, and so that you can really start to see the 3 point perspective. Otherwise, it becomes very hard to see it when you're just drawing objects and things within your household. So if I just show you what's in here, so above that exquisite corpse game, there's an option here that says perspective drawing, and I'm going to go through and kind of walk you through the process, but I'll just show you the resources that are up here. So one, the first one is a PDF, and I'll go through this sort of stuff, but it's the very basic idea of single point perspective and what's happening. So this is going to be essentially a backup to what I'll go through and show you. It'll go down to, so this is the sort of thing that you're going to end up doing. Like I'm going to show you using objects, but the classic one, and this is what I was hoping we'd be able to do it Te Auaha, because the structure of the building is amazing, and for doing single point and 2 point perspective, it's a godsend. But essentially, you're just lining yourself up straight in front of something, straight on. Gives you a single point perspective, and everything comes from that one point. And you will see it with everything that you draw. Once you have a look in your flat and you're straight onto something, you'll see all the angles of everything, the pictures, the shelves, all kind of angling in, and will aim towards a single point that's on your eye level. So the horizon line or the eye level, that is always going to be where the vanishing point ends, unless you're bringing in that third perspective. And you can see here it goes into 2 point perspective. It's the same thing. You have 2 vanishing points, but it's always ending up on your eye level. And the eye level is just, if you're sitting up straight or you're standing up and looking forward where your eyes are. So if you're looking at the floor, obviously the eye level isn't on the floor. It's if you turn your head up and you're looking straight ahead, that's your eye level. And we'll see with the example that I draw as well. So this goes through 2 point perspective, and this goes into the 3 point that you can have a look at, but let's not worry about that. We'll talk about drawing ellipses. That's always a bit of a tricky one. Did you go through ellipses, drawing bottles when you did it last year?
No, not from memory. No.
Okay. All right. Foreshortening, we won't worry about that stuff. It's really just the first point and second point perspective. This one is ideally, this is what I'm after. This is a link. One of the things with perspective drawing is sometimes, to put it bluntly, your drawings can end up horribly anal. Like they're just, once you get into that thing of kind of ruling lines and everything, it absolutely kills the drawing. If you want to rule any line, the best one to rule would be an eye level line. and then everything else do it freehand. And this link gives some really good examples. So this is the drawing. So it's loose, it's relatively quick. They're not putting too much detail into it, but it follows this very strong vanishing point. And when you go to the next image, it shows you how everything lines up. So with this is, excuse me, this is something that you'll get used to. And I know it's difficult at first, is a lot of drawings and a lot of stuff you do gets overcooked. Like, people don't know when to stop. This is a really good example, especially with perspective drawing, is that some of these things are almost just structural lines, are almost non-existent. And then they've put more detail just into a section. That's a really lovely way to draw. Again, you can see that they have the where the vanishing point is going. With this one, they've only put in one vanishing point, but you can actually see how this angles up. If you follow that line, it goes up, and you'll see that this one here, these ones are angling down. So that second vanishing point would be over here somewhere, and that's what all of this stuff is angling towards. That line on the stairs, this one, these ones kind of angling down. This is a stunning drawing. The same thing, a little bit of detail here, and then things kind of loosen off. And if you have a look at the bike's beautiful. It's just a scribble of a couple of lines. So it's just an indication of a bike, but of course it's still following those kind of vanishing point lines. Another one here. Okay, now it's showing the two vanishing points, all going to come down. Oh, sorry, I should have said the red line that runs through everything is the eye level. So you can see these lines eventually are going to converge in and meet on the eye level, but that's going to be way off here somewhere, way off the picture. These ones here, you can see these ones are going to come in and meet out here somewhere, and then these will meet a lot further off, but they're all going to meet up on their eye level line. Yeah, okay, and this one is starting to indicate the 2-point perspective. The bricks are kind of all heading in, and the buildings, and then these are running down this vanishing point as well. But we'll start off with some simple stuff and kind of go through that. A couple more. So another one here. I mean, this is just the very basics of 2-point. Usually when you start this process off, and this is what a lot of you would have gone through, is drawing boxes. So if it's above your eye level, then you end up looking up under it, and if it's below, you're looking down on it. It's the formula. And you can see this is nice where they've got pictures and they've tried to put in the vanishing points. This image is a little bit trickier, because instead of doing one building, there's a number of buildings, and the angles are a little kind of on and off. They're not all on the same angle. This is a better one. One building, 2-point perspective, and you can see this all angling down. So because we're looking up at the building, our eye level is probably going to be right along the bottom of that picture. So all these lines are going to converge down to a vanishing point that'll be on that eye level. Again, more images. This one, because the angle is so sharp, you can actually see where that vanishing point is on the eye level line. Yep. So the terrible boxes, but you know, this is really lovely. So you can see the foundation of the drawing in there and using the perspective, but then develops into a painting. And you can kind of see from this one that it's looking down at that building that's flat in the end, so you end up with this kind of single point perspective. Everything verging in on a center point that's probably around here somewhere. And the nice thing as well is it gives that direction within the painting, gives a real focus. So these are some nice examples when it's been developed a bit further into a painting. Okay, a couple more. These ones here, I'll go through this because this can be the hardest thing to get used to, is doing cylinders, doing ellipses. So the way that you go through and draw that. I'm going to show you a particular technique for it, and this one here, I took this up. It's a
if you're serious
a
about
YouTube video. All right, we'll get Kim Gast out of the way. The reason I chucked this up is when this guy does ellipses, it's not the technique that I use, or this first one. I think he goes into the way I do it. This one's really pretty mechanical, like gridding everything out and getting the points. You can obviously see with this technique, once you start drawing a bottle, it would be a nightmare because you'd end up with a myriad of graph lines and everything. You wouldn't know where you were going. But it's good to see this process. So there are other ways that you can kind of go about it. The one that I use is this technique that he's going to go through here. So you can kind of simplify down the lines a wee bit. So just on there as a resource, and the other one's just the cover image. I think just in this one here, I've got just 3 examples, just really, really nice single point perspective. And the reason I put, well, the first 2 up anyway, is because they have a quality to them that still has a little bit of looseness. So this is pretty tight, but it's not too bad. This one's beautiful. This is sunning on the parchment paper. So the lines slightly put in for the vanishing point, for single point perspective, and then everything kind of darkened in over the top of it. And one more where it's getting hugely technical, because perspective drawing, this comes in with the Age of Enlightenment, the Renaissance, all that thing. If you look at if you go online and look at perspective and Renaissance paintings and stuff, everything from the Last Supper, the vanishing points are extremely powerful, and they use them to give absolute focus and direction within their paintings. Really, really beautiful examples, and that's what this kind of harks back to, is this very, very kind of strong analytical process with perspective. The other thing I was going to say as well is some of these images I've gone through and started to put comments on. I haven't gone all the way through, but this is at a stage now where I want to be able to give you some kind of feedback on your feedback on your work so that you can push it. And this is great. I mean, Jason's done a really lovely job, to be honest, where I've made comments on his work, and then he's added a bit more on. And from the some of you that have kind of added more photos in, it's great because there's a very noticeable development that it's starting to click a wee bit, and the photos that you're putting up are great. You know, there's a step up from what you were doing. So the more you can put up on Trello. If you can't use Trello, you're having problems, then please send me images on an email. I just want to be able to give some kind of feedback and keep pushing you. And the other thing as well is the nice thing about Trello is that you can actually go in and see the comments. So learn learn from looking at other people's work and the comments I've left. So this is a classic one where the photo is really beautiful, and then it ends at the feet. So it's a great photo. And my only comment here, rather than the technical, is just to add into the composition of it. So I've basically taken the photo, chopped it off, stopped it there, and great image. The composition becomes stronger when it's cropped a bit. So for me, this makes a much stronger image than when it's actually the whole thing with the feet there. So it's these sorts of comments, and you'll find that as we move into Photoshop, there's quite a lot of detail in that process. So there's a lot to learn, and sometimes it can be very, very small changes or subtle changes when you get onto Photoshop that can make a huge difference. So it starts to become about the composition, negative and positive space, the cropping of images, and that sort of stuff that becomes more prominent. So make sure you're having a look at other people's, and you can see here when comments have been placed in. All right. Hey, so workbook. Keep ticking that over. Please give me stuff to critique. Are there any questions about this stuff so far? And then we'll get into a bit of drawing.
There was one assessment where it said it wanted like shutter speed and stuff, but it was because you were getting photos off Google. What happens if you can't get like the shutter speed in the iOS and the F?
Is it and you can't get it because you don't have a digital camera, or you can't get it because you're not sure?
No, you can't get it because it's photos that are off, because you have to choose photos that are off Google or something else. Because it's off Google, I couldn't find like the shutter speed or the
sorry. No, if you get any images off Google, all I want you to do is have a guess.
Oh, okay. So just guess them and then try and write as much information as you can if you want.
Yeah. So for instance,
okay.
if we take this image as an example, Jason. Yeah. I mean, when you look at that, for me, the comment I would make is I would say, okay, well, it's overexposed, but the reason it's overexposed is because he's tried to get this dramatic movement with the vehicle. So he's forced into a position where the shutter speed has to be open for a decent length of time. I'd say because the buildings look pretty good. that maybe he's pushed himself up against the side of a building or something to hold the camera steady, or maybe he has had a tripod. I'd find it really hard to believe that he could hand hold it that steady and get that movement. So it's just like, so if I look at that and I'd say, okay, cars are driving past, maybe the shutter speed has had to have been 1/30th, or maybe maybe a bit longer than that. Hey, are you on here, Jason? No,
He's in the chat.
He's what?
He's in the chat.
Oh, he's in the chat. Okay, so he could probably let us know what the setting is. I don't think he's got it written.
He says it's 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Okay, right. So that's a massive amount of time. So two seconds, because it's during the day. Even if he had the ISO right down as low as it could go, then there's probably still way too hard for him to stop the buildings from bleaching out. So I think I talked to you guys at some stage about what's called an ND, or a neutral density filter, and that's basically like on a bright day, if you wanted to have this amount of movement or even more, to be able to do that 2 seconds, it's like putting sunglasses over your camera. So you make everything darker, and because it's darker, then it means that it's not letting so much light in. So then it means that the exposure of this could come down and you could still have the movement. But really difficult to get, like almost impossible to get a 2 second shot on a sunny or even an overcast day. But it's, it's great. So awesome image. So yeah, so if you get stuff off Google, just have a guess, and you can. And so the obvious one is like you can look at this, and Jason said, okay, it's 2 seconds. So now when you look at this one with the people, and I mean, it's also, you've got to take into account the speed that they're walking and everything, but now the exposure is good. But so you could look at this and say, well, the feet are still in focus, so it's not as long as 2 seconds. And, but it's just having a guess. There's no right or wrong. But what it shows to me is that you're gathering that understanding to say, okay, well, if I want some movement, the shutter's got to be open for longer to get that movement. And then it's like, well, if the shutter's open for longer, then that means I've got to let less light in, because it's going to be open for longer. And it's like, well, so in that case, I'd probably use a really low ISO, so it's not sensitive to light, and a really, really small aperture, so like an f22 or whatever. So it's just, having a guess. But yeah, it's good.
Good. Yeah, because I wasn't too sure, and I was trying to like research it, and I was like, couldn't find it. I was like, I can't find it.
God, no, it'd be impossible to try and find out exactly what they've used. But yeah, so it's good. Keep going with the photography and everything. Like when we get into that third assignment, you can grab some of this older stuff to utilize. Once we get into Photoshop, you'll get a better idea of how we're actually compiling and pulling all of this stuff together. And in the third assignment, you can still, so never chuck anything away. All of this stuff can still be, of great value.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's okay. Any other questions? All right. So I'll stop sharing that, and I'll I'll just change.
Oh, Adrian, I have a quick
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Because we on next Friday there's not going to be a class, is there?
Is that this Friday or next Friday?
I think it's this.
I mean Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
This
Yeah.
hang on.
Alright.
It's this Friday. Is, it kicks into Easter and all that sort of thing. Just we'll change the background. Because one of the things that's going to come up is there's study, there's study break and all that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to do is on the Thursdays for you guys, whether it's study break or not, I'm just going to be available. I think it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to jam you full of new material when it's over the study break or anything like that, in case some do want to have a bit of a break. But it's hard enough as it is with the coronavirus that you kind of you're missing out on stuff, and so I want to make sure that I'm available so that you can keep going and keep doing stuff and still get it checked if you want to.
Cool. So should we just if it comes to starting the photo collage part, should we just personally email you and ask you what, show you our work that we're up to, and then ask you where do I go from here?
Yeah. What we'll do is I think next Thursday, it's not conflicting with Easter and it's before the study break. That's right, eh? I'll have to have a look at that. Ideally what I want to do is introduce Photoshop next Thursday. I'll put some tutorials up before then, but that's going to be the hardest process. The hardest part of all of this stuff is going to be Photoshop. Even people who have done Photoshop before, this will still push your ability with the program. So there's a lot of detail. So what I'm aiming for is to introduce Photoshop, and that I would say is where people are going to ask the most questions and need help and all that sort of thing, and just make myself available. The other thing as well is once we get into the digital realm, if you actually want to send me working files, then I can actually change things, play with things, and give you a better idea as well. The bit that becomes difficult, and why I want you guys to send stuff in or put it up on Trello so I can comment, is that when you're in the classroom environment, I walk around and I can kind of say, "I'll stop there. That looks great. Start a new drawing. Don't overcook it," or this would be great with more negative space. So it becomes harder with this kind of online process to get that sort of feedback. So don't fall into the category that sometimes students do. And I used to do the same thing as a student, is to hide all my work and then at the last minute hand it in for assessment and go, ta-da! And of course the tutors were like, "Oh, geez." So the best value that you'll get from me is not necessarily learning all the processes, because you can do that in a lot of ways. It will be the feedback and the details. I think that's where you'll get the most benefit.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, let's see if we can do a little bit of drawing. Share screen. Yeah. Woohoo. Okay, so I've got some nasty thing here, the little ink bottle, the some crazy mathematical quiz game from China that my son got, and some kind of hard drive device. But the first thing I'll do is just give a very, very basic rundown of single point perspective. So draw a line like that. That's my eye level, or the horizon line. And this box exercise that you see drawn all the time is when you're doing single point perspective, all the verticals are always straight. And then as it angles off, it goes to a vanishing point. So if I say, that's my vanishing point there, and I draw a box, then the bottom of that box, or all of the lines actually, come down to the vanishing point. Even on the inside, if I did a little dashed line, dotted line, they all come to the vanishing point. And so that means if I say, okay, the bottom of my box is about here, it follows those angled lines. If it's a transparent box, then I'd see these lines. And remember, every vertical is straight up and down. So if that's the corner and I draw it straight up, that's the corner and I draw it straight up until it hits that angled line. So now it becomes transparent. If I draw the box out here, no problem, it's the same thing. The corners always go to the vanishing plane. And I say, okay, that's where the box ends, draw my straight line, and I follow those angled lines. This one here is the bottom of the box, so it's straight as well. So it's really only when the sides are coming, so those verticals, and I suppose, sorry, the horizontals as well. Now, because the eye level is below those boxes, I can see the bottom of them. So if I draw another box below my eye level, you're going to get the opposite. Draw those lines. And now, there's my side, the vertical straight. There's my horizontal straight. So now I see the top of the box. If I draw the box right over top of the vanishing point, then I see nothing, because all these lines are hidden behind it. Out here, I get the best of both worlds. No top, no bottom, just a side, because it angles up and it angles down. So, so drawing the, so the pictures of the room that we'd seen, that's your back wall. And when you look at it within your own home, it's going to be, you will see the angles looking at the roof and looking at the floor. Everything's heading to a vanishing point that sits in here somewhere. So now, if I say, okay, so I've got a cupboard, tall skinny cupboard, and it's got a couple of long legs on it. Everything goes back towards that vanishing point. It takes about that much space up in my lounge, even the legs, using those lines. So that goes back and I can't see the other leg, it's in behind there. Even the cupboards, straight up and down and following, oh shit, I'm off the camera. Find those angles. You got a mat on the floor. The good one that you'll see is like, let's say if you've got a window, no, you've got it there, you will see that everything becomes angled. So if I come here and I give you a bigger version of it, so let's say this is just the bottom of the window, and we've got the side. The perspective is going to give that that width. If there's a little bit on the inside from the vanishing point, it'll widen out a little bit here. I mean, this is just a, oh, am I frozen?
Yeah, just just the camera has.
Oh. Oh yeah, okay, sorry. So it widens, let's say it's got a little bit of thickness to it, so the vertical straight up and down, and then the vanishing point, so you can see this is all going to widen out, and if it has some sort of lintel, get one side of it, and then the vanishing point will bring it out, sort of thing. So that's just, you know, indicating a close-up of what would be happening in here. So everything, once you start looking at the room, everything is going to work that way. And so if we have a look at this crazy little thing here, and I'll have a go at doing that. So we can see that if you see this, the angles angling in are sharper than what's happening down here. So it is all going to a vanishing point, but the vanishing point is way, way off in the distance here somewhere, because I'm looking down on the object. So let's have a go. I have to turn it side on for a bit, but I'll turn it back so you can see what's going on. So I'll do a center line, and that. So this is kind of the two cubes at the top. I'm having a little bit of a, I guess this is like when you're looking at the distances, this is that weird kind of, you know, if you start to look at it and say that is like just over half a, just over half a pencil lead, and the other one is not quite as much. So you can come down here and say, okay, well, whatever that distance is, this is, you know, 7/8 of that distance. So this is where that kind of measuring side of things starts to kick in. So these have a slight angle. This is straight up and down. We've got a bit coming out here. These are a little bit bigger now, these blocks. So I'm just drawing straight down the center here. You can see these side bits will go, but won't go past the block. So let's draw them in. So they go, again, aiming in towards where I think my vanishing point will be. Usually what I do, I like doing is, you know, putting everything in lightly, and then darkening off some of these lines. I might have stuffed this one up a wee bit just because of the kind of object it is. So we've got this now coming through. I'll put the thickness in like that. And
Morning.
How are you this morning?
hi.
Good. You?
Oh, yeah. Pretty cold today.
Right, and so remember that again, this one, because of the distortion of the camera, you can actually see that third perspective, you can see that, oh shit, those things are starting to edge in, but I won't draw them like that. I'm just going to do classic single point perspective, vertical straight, and then these angles are coming in a little bit more sharply. Probably rub some of the stuff out, and I'll pretend that I can just see that bit at the bottom. So you can see now that with, I'm trying not to get a distortion, but single point perspective, everything is just veering off into the distance. So now that actually we'll keep it easy. We'll do 2-point perspective and then jump into the ellipses. Okay, so 2-point perspective. Oh, there we go. If I do my eye level again, and then this time it's like, instead of looking directly front on an object, actually this is a better one to look at. So if we look at this, those angles going off to the vanishing point, so they're all going off to a single vanishing point that's way up here somewhere. When you want to do 2-point perspective, it's the corner angle is now the one that's straight on to you. So rather, instead of drawing the front square face of a square, we now do, this is facing us, one of these edges. So if I do this, and then I look at, maybe there's a vanishing point, here's another one, it's the same thing. All the angles meet that line. Straight up and down for the verticals. And then these parts come back to the vanishing point as well. And that defines the bottom of that rectangle for us. Again, it's above our eye line, so we end up looking at the bottom. What happens if it's straight above, actually a 2-point perspective. So if we do it from here, and we say that's our vanishing point, there's our vanishing point, so that side goes off to that. That's just coming straight down. So straight, and then this corner comes angled in. Below the line, let's do one up here. So we're going to find that going to the vanishing points, there's the side, there's the side, it's going to be quite shallow. So that becomes a harder shape to draw in. Down here, it's well below us, so we're going to end up seeing a lot more of the top. There's those sides, that goes to the vanishing point, that goes to the vanishing point. And we see, oh shit. And we see a lot more of it. And it becomes more and more dramatic the further down you go. Come right down here, and it's really starting to distort heavily. So now what you're going to see is the sides are going to become quite small, and it's going to start becoming almost a perfect square on top. But this is really starting to get quite distorted now. You can't. You've always the vanishing points are always going to be out to the side, so you couldn't draw a line here and say, okay, it goes off to the vanishing point, and then because that can't go anywhere. If the second vanishing point is inside it, so it becomes a bit awkward. So these vanishing points are always out to the side with anything, and you can see here, looking at this again. That's moving off that plane, that one there, and then these are starting to converge. So again, the eye level's right up here. So it starts to become, I wonder if I can, yeah, so if you come down lower, because the eye level's lower, you'll end up, what's that?
So for the 1.2 point perspective,
yeah,
do you mind what we draw?
No,
House, or it can just be an object.
I'm happy with it being an object. I was hoping that would be at Te Waha, and we could do the architecture of the building because it's so strong. But I leave that up to your judgment. If you think that there's a room in your house or a hallway or something that has really strong dynamics, then draw that. But if you want to do an object, that's fine. I'd say push it as much as you can. Like obviously, this is just a square.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exciting, but remember those drawings as well. So for instance, even if you were doing something like this, and I'll just do it quickly with a vanishing point. What I'm trying to do at this stage is to kind of leave very, very little detail, and then I'll come in and really focus more on the plug. And sometimes it's quite good to try and put a bit of shading if you can, and give this some more volume and depth. But you know that can look really nice as well to have that. Sorry, this style of drawing where it just goes out into this kind of, you know, even if it just shows the square that would be involved in the the square that would be involved in the 2-point perspective, and then you just focus on an area, you can get some really nice drawings. And the thing is, well, because this stuff can be introduced into Photoshop, very important not to overcook it. Okay, so don't try and fill everything in. Don't try and shade it all in. This is when it really starts to become a lot more engaging, when there's this kind of loose structural, or you can see the structural lines, and then there's, excuse me, a bit of detail, like the website we were looking at before, kind of loose drawings and the kind of sketchiness of the bicycle, but it's still, you know, it's like, that's my bike, but it still follows this kind of vanishing point. Does that make sense? Maybe.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so single 2-point perspective. One of the things that's really good for 2-point perspective is stuff like this, where you've got the bookshelves, so I can see those lines running off to a vanishing point. Oh, it's focusing on the pencil now. And these ones coming in. So you can see up the top here, I can see that underneath the shelves, my eye line, where's my eye line's going to be about here. Well, probably here. So you can see that. So in that case, you can see just a tiny bit of the bottom of that shelf, but you can see a tiny bit of the top. So the eye level's going right in between. Okay. So look, let's say it's 11 o'clock at the moment. That's quite a bit. Hey, so first of all, with all of you online, is there? I know that's kind of fast and furious, but is there anyone that finds that just horrendously complicated? Don't be afraid to say
I
it.
kind of do.
You do? Yeah.
Yeah, just because like it's not like drawing, it's like another type of drawing.
Yeah, I tried to do it while you were talking and it looks like shit.
Well,
What
for
does
what,
I tried, I didn't even attempt it because it would have looked like shit, so I didn't even try.
for us level 4, when we did it,
Guys, you need to understand that like these types of drawings and stuff, they might look shit to you, but they might work fantastically for when you put them into Photoshop and make them look crazy.
True.
Start off with squares.
Start
Like-
with squares.
Yeah,
cubes?
that's how you learn the fundamentals.
Yeah.
I can do cubes.
The squares is just the very kind of analytical way of doing it, just working it all out. I mean, once you, I'll take some photos and put them up. Once you start looking at your room and looking at objects, when you look at it front on or right from the corner, you can see how dramatic those vanishing lines are. Where it starts to become really complicated. And this is the bit that people can get confused with. I'll do an example. You might have, right, in my place, I've got a in the middle of the room, there's a fire. Can't focus on it for some reason. So a fireplace. So you can have that, and it's quite strong. So I can see very easily the vanishing points on it. But where it becomes unstuck is when you have a box or something else in the room where it's not on the same angle, and then the vanishing points become like, oh my god, what the hell is going on? It starts to become really really confusing. So make sure when you're drawing, especially if you're doing a single point perspective and all that sort of stuff, that you don't draw your room, and if there's a cupboard that's pushed up against the wall, perfect, because it's going to be following the dynamics of the room. That's why windows or pictures on the wall, it's all perfect. Shelving units, the same sort of thing. But if you have a chair that's on a different angle, it becomes really confusing when you're drawing. It becomes a lot harder. So some of those things, if you're drawing 2-point perspective or single point perspective, just forget about those things. Just knock them out. Just keep it to the basics. And if there is something like a chair that's there, just scribble it in loosely, but don't worry about the perspective. I think that's usually the bit that where people become stuck, is when they have objects that they're drawing, but then there's other objects in there that are on a different angle. So for instance, sitting on top of this fireplace, if I have you know, a box of matches sitting up on the top there, then it becomes confusing because the vanishing points are changing. It's on a different angle. It starts to become an anomaly, and that's a really tricky point that catches a lot of people out. Is suddenly they start to distort things because they think they have to try and meet the same vanishing point that this other object's on. So do keep it simple. You know, if you're drawing a room, draw a particular thing that you can see strong vanishing points on, or the same with the single point perspective. Just do the things where you really see it, and don't try and draw the things where if you don't see a strong vanishing point on it, leave it out. Or like the chair, do a kind of funny ghost mock-up of something in there. But you know, the strongest point is going to be this. And it is difficult doing this this remotely. So the quarter past 11, this box exercise that we were just doing, have a go with that, or find something in your house that's really simple. Don't pick anything with circles. Don't pick a bottle or anything like that. Pick something really simple, like in my case, I've got a CD, you know, and again, once I'm straight onto that, I can see the angles going off, and then those straight horizontals. Now it gets a little bit tricky because of the angle I'm looking on. That looks like it's going in a bit. Turn it on an angle. So this one, pretty much straight on. I can see how those sides are slowly converging. What happens if I move it off to the side a little bit? These lines become more dramatic. These ones not so much. Even this crazy little thing for plugging into an airplane. You know, then you can see those angles going off to a vanishing point. Because of the angle, the angle I'm on and everything, it becomes hard to see that these lines are converging, because they're converging way off in the distance, but they will be converging slightly. So just, you know, pick an object and keep it really simple. So what I want you to do is I want you guys to have a go just over the next 15. Let's say 1 o'clock. If we come back, if we go offline, I'll send another invite out at 5 to 1. We'll come back on at 1 and then do the ellipses, and we'll just do a little bit with the ellipses. I just think if this is just to get used to this stuff, because the add ellipses on top of that will get really complicated. Okay.
Okay. So we'll come back at 1.
Yeah, I'll send another invite out at 5 to 1.
Okay.
And then we'll just do some ellipses there. So try doing a couple of boxes in single point perspective. a couple of boxes in 2-point perspective. So this is you just making up the vanishing points and getting this kind of distorted box, and then find something really simple within your house. If you want to do shelves or a window or something like that, do it. But otherwise, just find something really basic and have a go at drawing it. Hey, who did the shitty drawing before? Did they want to show me with the camera? It's okay. There's no. I'll I might laugh, but just not for long. I won't laugh, but if you can, put it up and show me on Zoom on the. Oh, are you worried about everyone else seeing it?
Yeah.
Ah.
All right. We all did shitty drawings back when we did 1 point and 2 point.
Oh, yeah, I can confirm
I could-
that a lot of it was just like, oh my god, what is people drawing?
I've
How
got
do
one
I
of.
do
You'll
it?
get it. You'll get better. It's okay.
I've got one I could show if you would like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
show me.
yeah.
I had some of my old shit.
Show us
so-
your ugliest drawing. The worst.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's of a subway car.
Yeah, that's from
Isn't that the
thing.
train
Disappeared.
thing?
Yeah, it is.
Ah.
Yeah.
It disappeared.
Yeah, because I think on Zoom, whenever anyone talks, their face pops up. So I saw the drawing for a split second. So on the count, just after the count of 3, silence,
Wow.
and except for the person showing the picture, and then they say something, and then it comes up, and I have a quick look, and I suppose if I chat, it gets rid of it. Yeah, let's try that anyway. So 1, 2, 3.
There you go. So
Wow.
there it is. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's not really good.
Yeah, is it?
It's from the certificate last year.
Yeah, it's a subway car.
Yeah, that's a nice 1 point perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Adrian,
yeah.
are you set to full screen currently?
No. You want me on
Oh.
full screen?
No, because the thing is I've got like a bar at the top of my screen that shows all the people who are using video at the moment.
Yeah. That's
Oh, so you switch that at the top where it says speaker view.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is that's so why wasn't anybody else appearing at the top bar for you when you were when the other people were talking?
For me, I've got all the I've got names and square boxes across the top. A lot of them look like they've got the microphones muted. So for
Yeah.
Ben Davis is muted.
Because yeah, it should have shown the people who were talking in sequence.
Yeah, but I don't have any I don't have any images. I'm just wondering if you guys have actually got your cameras switched off.
If
I
everyone
don't.
has all their cameras on, then the whole thing lags like nobody's business.
Ah.
Ah.
There's someone.
Ah.
Someone's
There's,
seen it.
yeah. I just took mine off. Huh.
Nice ceiling.
Yeah. Oh. No, I'm there. Yeah.
Oh, and I like at the bottom of that image, you can see the vanishing points. You can see the corner of your room coming in, your ceiling. It's nice.
I should try and draw.
See, look, that's look at the vanishing points on the building going off into the distance. God, that's a beautiful one to do, except it would be a nightmare. Even doing the cars.
Yeah, it would be a nightmare.
But you know, same thing. Like, why not knock in a few vanishing point lines and just focus on doing like the back end of the blue directly in front of you, and just giving a hint of the rubbish bins off to the side or the building off to the side, like just doing really quickly the bottom. This is this is the thing with this kind of drawing is you can kind of map it out and just put details in an area. It becomes really laborious when you try to do everything precisely. But the main thing is, and that car park was a beautiful example. You can see the blue car that's directly in front of you.
Yeah.
It doesn't converge that quickly because your eye level is basically off in the clouds. So the car's coming in, but then if you look at the building beside you, you can see the angles on that are coming in sharper. Yeah. So you can actually see from the cars, more so the buildings, it really coming into a single point of perspective. And obviously you'll get things that are a little bit out, like houses that aren't built on exactly the same angle as everything else. But the blue car and the shed beside it and the rubbish bins, because I think the rubbish bins are pushed up more or less against the side of the building. Beautiful. Really shows you that perspective. So yeah, if you can, that's a great one to draw. Just don't draw the whole cityscape for the next 6 years. But a little bit of detail it's perfect. It's a really good one.
Sweet.
Yeah. So look, I would say just let's get offline. Come back at 1 o'clock. So I'll open up a new invite at 5:02, and then you can show me drawings and see what you're having problems with. The perspective one of the subway car, it's awesome because it shows the perspective really well, the single point perspective. The only thing that's out with it that probably makes it look like a fudgy picture to you is that the proportions are out. So the end of the subway car with the door in comparison to the size of the seats looks really odd. But that's a proportional thing. But the actual vanishing point's perfect. So don't be worried. Don't be phased out by your ability to draw or not draw or anything like anything like that.
I think you just start off with boxes and then just add detail from there, like just to structure it and stuff like that.
Yeah. And and I mean that this is where I have to be careful, as I'm so used to it that I kind of look at it and think, oh yeah, I can see vanishing point, but maybe you do need to start off with the squares to understand the process if you haven't done it before. And there's those PDFs and those links that if you want it, if you need to have a look, open one of them up and you'll see the kind of vanishing points in there as well. So you can have a look at that stuff. But let's come back at 1. I'll show you how to do the ellipses, and then we'll hopefully have a look at anything if you've got anything drawn. But just rough it out at the moment. That's all we need. Okay, onward and upward. Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's okay. See you just before 1. See how you've gone. Right.
All right. See ya.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
See ya.